Costa. Follow him on Twitter at Costa Reports Pensacola. And to my audience who are listening on WPNN FM 103.7, 790, always get their Twitter handles. Robert Costa is at Costa Reports. I'm at Hugh Hewitt. Good morning, Bob. How are you? Where do we find you?
I'm about to fly to New Hampshire. I'm going to be the pool reporter today with Vice President Pence. He's going to go to a Cops for Trump rally in New Hampshire, then go to the rally with President Trump in Manchester. The White House is trying to make sure they have some presence in New Hampshire, even as the Democrats are all there.
Now, the president announced he is going to go to a rally tonight on Twitter about 20 minutes ago. That's counter-programming on a level I've never seen. I was in New Hampshire 4 years ago when all of the Republicans and the Democrats were there, but I don't recall when it's an uncontested primary, as Trump's is, that person going to counter-program. Do you, Robert Costa?
It is unprecedented. We haven't seen a White House in a presidential campaign engage in this kind of counter-programming at this level. Sometimes campaigns in the past and incumbents have sent surrogates to different early nominating states just so they have some kind of presence there. But to send dozens and dozens of surrogates to have these major arena rallies, for President Trump's allies, it's really about overwhelming the Democrats, making them feel like they're not the main story, trying to compete with them at every turn, overwhelm them with liveliness and political attacks.
Now, the president also just tweeted out 95% approval rating in the Republican Party, a record 53% overall, and he added in parentheticals plus or minus 9 points. Corrupt Dem politicians have brought me to the highest polling numbers ever with the impeachment hoax. Thank you, Nancy. Hard to argue with the numbers, Bob Costa. The failure of impeachment appears to have helped the president.
My Sunday front page story with Phil Rucker in the Washington Post is all about how there's anxiety now in the Democratic Party. The Gallup poll shows President Trump at 49%. He has just emerged from the impeachment process, a Senate trial with acquittal. He's moving forward with retribution on certain fronts, going against his political enemies, some enemies internally in the administration that he perceives. So you see a president unbound at this moment, feeling very confident, and the economy in particular is what is boosting this White House's view of everything as they head toward November.
Now talk to me a little bit about the Democratic side. I have been following it as closely as any Republican does. I've already voted for Bernie Sanders in Virginia, so my vote is cast, but it seems to me Buttigieg has got the momentum, even as, because of this quote,
"You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier,"
that Joe Biden continues to fall, pratfall after pratfall. Robert Costa, is that campaign, the Biden campaign, on an elevator that's only going down?
The elevator is going to have a major test in South Carolina later this month, Saturday, right before Super Tuesday. South Carolina primaries, what the Biden campaign has put an emphasis on ever since the start, because they make the case that they can win over black voters and Pete Buttigieg can't, and that no one else really has that power with black voters in the Democratic Party. So at this point, you already have Biden lowering expectations in New Hampshire. He stumbled in Iowa. Nevada's not going to be that easy for him either. So it's all in South Carolina. And the big question in this Democratic race right now is, does Biden lose South Carolina? Does someone else somehow slip through? Senator Sanders, someone else, Buttigieg even. Does Biden lose South Carolina? And if he loses South Carolina, Super Tuesday becomes very scrambled, and the Bloomberg ascendancy comes into even clearer focus because of his money and his ability to say, hey, if Biden can't be the standard bearer for the center, that's me. But that at the same time, if Buttigieg has momentum, that's a threat to Bloomberg and Biden as well. Buttigieg is really catching on with people who want a new face, someone who can compete with President Trump. Be the total opposite temporally.
And, there is an attempt by some people to bootstrap Amy Klobuchar into contention. And I know she might get to 10% or 11%, but not after Iowa, where she's the neighbor, not if you come in third or fourth in New Hampshire. I just don't see her playing in the South. I don't see her playing in Super Tuesday. Is that ship sailed as well, Robert Costa?
If she can come in second or third in New Hampshire, and some polls show that's possible, she's going to be a contender. If she comes a distant fourth and she's hovering around 8, 9, 10% in New Hampshire, she could probably stay in the race until Super Tuesday, but it's hard to see how she competes. At this point, she's done better than expected. So she's helped her national political profile. But she has to have a really strong finish in New Hampshire because if Buttigieg and Bernie are pulling ahead with 25, 26, 28% in New Hampshire and she's down at 8, 9%, it's just hard to see her have a case. And same for Senator Warren. Senator Warren has some money and a name, but her poll numbers continue to slip.
You know what I think she's done, Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, Robert Costa, is make herself the early front runner in the Veep stakes for either Bernie Sanders or Pete Buttigieg. In other words, go out there, you fight the fight, you define yourself as a moderate. The Minnesota is not considered by many people to be in play, but it is. You get maybe a little Iowa bump, you get a little Wisconsin bump with Amy Klobuchar. I've been saying for months, Josh Shapiro, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, gets the Keystone State in play. But I think Amy Klobuchar doggedly hanging in there has maybe pushed her up the Veep stakes rankings. What do you think, Robert Costa?
I think that's a very fair point, and she's definitely going to be in the Veep stakes mix. If it ends up being Vice President Biden, or Mayor Bloomberg, or even Pete Buttigieg, you could see easily Senator Klobuchar being part of that list. So the Democratic Party has put a real emphasis on having diversity on the ticket. So they may want a person of color. We'll have to see.
Now, talk to me a little bit about coronavirus and whether or not it is impacting. Let's just start with Washington Week in Review. I did not see Friday night's show. I was out with the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt. So my question is, did you cover coronavirus on Friday night, and has it begun to break through as the international pandemic crisis it may well be already that we are just not really aware of yet?
We're looking at it, and we've talked about it on the show and in the newsroom as a potential black swan, politically, economically, medically, throughout the world. The economy right now is so strong, the market's at an all-time high. But if you look at the Chinese this morning, if the workers aren't showing up as ordered in China, you could have economic turbulence if these factories don't really start humming again in China, and a massive economic slowdown would slow down the entire global economy. There's real questions about Xi Jinping, his ability to lead China. Can he actually get this country functioning? Is he going to accept global medical help? And at this point, it's very unclear what the actual situation is in China.
Now, the lead this morning over at the Sky News is UK coronavirus cases double as 4 more test positive after coming into contact with a super spreader. They now have 11 Britons who have been infected by one man who caught the virus in Singapore, then went to France and the United Kingdom. So it's a highly virulent strain, at least that this guy has. Anyone who's read The Great Influenza knows it goes through passages. It can become more lethal as it does that. I'm already getting hate mail for saying the market impacts. There's a human toll, there's an economic toll, there's a political toll. On the economic side, some people are winners like Amazon, which I own. I always tell you, some people are losers like Apple because they got a supply chain there. But on the political side, I haven't begun to figure out winners and losers yet. What do you think, Robert Costa?
It's hard to start getting into winners and losers at this point. What's important to watch with coronavirus is, does the Chinese Communist Party have a solution for containing this? Yes, there are going to be global spread, but does China have a solution here in terms of quarantine? And then you see the U.S. military at this point. What is the CDC plan? How are they going to deal with the people who are coming in from countries that have major problems with coronavirus? Are there going to be quarantines in the United States at some point? And so President Trump will be evaluated in terms of preparation in case this thing escalates as a global pandemic. At this point, wishing for the best, like everyone in the world, but all eyes on China, both economically and medically, as they deal with this crisis.
And I do not believe it is possible to overreact. The 1918 pandemic from your hometown of Philadelphia, when it exploded, it was a lamentable history of serial underreaction for fear of inciting panic, when they should have done exactly the opposite: overreact. Overreact. Robert Costa, a pleasure. Costa Reports on Twitter. If you're listening, whether you're on Pensacola, WPNN FM 103.7 F on the FM dial or 790.